Well, hello. Was that a cool intro? I think that was cool. That wasn't even intentional. I just thought when I hit the record button, I'm going to do a cool thing that I think people that make videos do. Welcome to video number 2. I'm assuming here that you've watched video number 1, which is me talking about my business being in a rut this time last year, what that was like, why that had happened, and answering some questions about being in that place and hopefully just reminding you all that that place is normal. And this is video number 2 where I'm talking practical stuff. Like, this is my fave of the 2 vids. Big believer that like action is everything. Like, at the core of success, at the core of change is action. So I know that off the back of that video, you're probably like, great, really glad to know I'm not alone, Alice, but like, can you actually help me know like what to do? I think what I would have really benefited from this time last year would have been someone to be like, hey, I was in that place, things have really changed for me, here are some things that might help you. So obviously in this video, I am purely talking about what has helped me. This is a very subjective video, but my hope is that there are going to be some things in this video that you can pick out which feel true for you. So I'm not saying that this is like a 4-step method for getting your business out of a rut, like how I went from no clients to fully booked in a year. Like, that's not what this video is. But this video is just like, hey, in hindsight, I can look back and maybe notice 4 things that helped things shift. I'm going to share them with you in the hope that they might help you. Number 1 that I think made the biggest difference was finding and growing in confidence in the way that I wanted to do things and in doing things in a way that felt true for me. I think at that point I'd fallen into the trap of thinking if I want to build something successful, I need to look at all the successful people and do what they're doing. And I think in a way I was doing this from a place of fear. So I was doing a lot of things which was almost replicating what others were doing because I thought, well, if it works for them, it must work for me. And I think in a way at this point when I was in this rut, I'd got to the point where I was like, okay, kind of tried all the other ways that was working for everyone else. The last thing to try is probably just doing it my way. Maybe I should give that a shot. And this really came down to everything within my business. How I was showing up for clients, the way that I presented my packages, the way that I spoke, the way that I priced things, the things that I was talking about, the colors that I was using on my branding, like literally everything I realized was being done because I thought it was going to work because it worked for X, Y, or Z. And of course, looking back, I'm like, how did I ever think that was the right way to do it? Like, replicating other people's approach, particularly as a service-based business and a personal brand, was never going to be the best fit. But I completely remember at the time, like, trusting my instinct or trusting my gut actually felt incredibly scary and felt incredibly naive as well to assume that I, as like a 20-year-old, knew the better way to do it. But actually it's not a better way, it's just the way that's better for you and for the business that you're building. Number 2, gosh, I talk about this topic all of the time, working on the big picture of my business and working on the foundations. I'm a big believer that often what feels like a practical problem in our business often actually stems from a problem with the foundations or the big picture of what we're building. So I remember when I was in this rut and things were feeling hopeless and I didn't really know what my next step was, just thinking like, hey, maybe I should just remind myself of the big picture here. And I remember spending some time asking myself, like, what's my impact? Who do I want to be reaching? What problems do they have? What problems do I want to solve? What do I want to be speaking about? What do I want my message to be? What am I building towards? Like, what is the big picture of this thing? I think in a way when I did this last year, it was the first time I'd really given myself permission to dictate what my business was going to look like. I think with my first year of business, my business formed something that I wasn't really in control of. Whereas actually it felt so incredible to sit down and just be like, hey, what do I want to build? Like, what do I want it to look like? How do I want it to feel? What impact do I want it to have? And I'm so glad that I did that because I think from that point, I gained so much clarity about what my next steps were because I finally understood the big picture of what those next steps were working towards. And then in terms of the foundation stuff, obviously it wasn't just about understanding the big picture, it was then almost reworking my business to make sure that the foundations were laid to facilitate that big picture that I was working towards. So refreshing everything in terms of my systems, my client onboarding, my packages, the way that I worked with people, the way that I did my finances, the way that I worked with freelancers, everything was shifted in the context of that big picture. And I look back and think, oh my gosh, like that changed everything. And it's now something that I see huge value in my business. It's that shift between working in and working on. I think it's that dual importance. You've got to work in your business to sustain it and make money and serve your clients or serve your customers, whatever else. But also you've got to work on your business to ensure that it's something that is continually evolving and to ensure that it grows and to ensure that it shifts over time and that you're not just allowing it to almost fumble its way and then create into something that maybe isn't exactly what you wanted it to be. And then number 3 that I think made a big shift, bit of a controversial one here maybe, was working for free. Now, I am actually a big believer that working for free can be incredibly fundamental in the growth of a business, but I only think that can be true if it's done intentionally and if it's done in the right way. For me, there are so many benefits in working for free. The first thing would be that I think it hugely grows your confidence. I know particularly when you're service-based, like you're kind of just selling your brain, and that's a really weird thing to do, to be like, cool, so an hour of my brain is worth this much money. And it's actually quite hard to not feel imposter syndrome when you're service-based and starting out, because you don't have this huge evidence bank here of like, well, here's why I know that my work is valuable and that my time is valuable and whatever else. So I find that working for free is really helpful internally because it really helps you understand like, cool, no, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. I think the second benefit in working for free would be that it really helps you to refine your offering. I would actually say if you're service-based that you should work for free at least once towards the start of your business, because it's an opportunity that you don't get with a paying client to just try things out. Like, it's the simple things of figuring out like, is my client onboarding good? Do I need to change something about the way that I work with people? You know, should I use a different software for this? Should the course be structured in a different way? I would say working for free is really valuable in being confident that you are delivering your services in the best way possible. I think the third and final benefit of working for free is that you get referrals and that you get your name out there. Particularly when you're service-based, like referrals are your marketing. For me, it's the biggest thing that gains me new clients is referrals. So it was really important to me at that early stage that I got the ball rolling, working with some people for free and ensuring that I was almost starting to get my name out there in that way. Now, obviously that's all the benefits of working for free, but the one thing I would say is if you're looking to do free work, do it in a structured way. Make sure it's structured in a way where you 100% know it's going to be as beneficial for you as the business as it is going to be for the person who's getting it. Because that's where I'd say that negative connotation of working for free comes from, is where people start and then it's really hard to stop and you've almost done a disservice to yourself by doing work for free in a non-structured way. And my fourth thing here to talk about in terms of what has shifted is being consistent. You can take on those 3 things that I've talked about, but if you're not consistent with it, you may as well not do it in the first place. I'm a big believer that at the core of success and achieving things is being consistent with action. I think it's that combination. You've got to take action, but you've got to be consistent with it. I think you're actually doing yourself and your business a disservice if you aren't consistent with the things that you start. I think it's very easy to be 4 months into trying something new and think, well, not quite getting the results back that I want, guess I'm gonna stop. But my biggest encouragement to you would be if something feels like a really good fit for you, keep at it. You know, when I first started the podcast, I was getting maybe 20, 40 downloads a week. And now, a year and a half into the podcast, I'm getting 700, 800, 1,000 podcast downloads a week. And I can show you literally the graph here, which shows that for the first 6 to 7 months of this podcast, I was getting hardly any people tuning in. But do you know what? It was something I believed in. I had this tiny, tiny bit of faith that it was going to be something that would be really powerful for me. So I kept at it. Be consistent with the content you're creating. Be consistent with the way that you're showing up for clients. You know, be consistent in the way that you're showing up for this business. If you need to, constantly take yourself back to what you're building and why you're building it, and keep saying that thing over yourself. Like, hey, the numbers right now may not tell me that this thing is working, but I trust somewhere in me, some crazy part of me trusts that this is possible. So I'm going to keep at it. If you need to remind yourself of that every single day to be consistent, do that. Because I honestly think consistency is great. Ignore the numbers for a bit, trust in what you're building, and I promise things will shift. So there we have it. 4 things that I recognize really helped to move me forward when I was in a rut in my business last year. And I just want to say to you as an encouragement, if you're watching this video, I know how overwhelming it feels when you're in that rut. I know how disheartening it feels. I know how annoying it is when people tell you things are going to change because you really sometimes just don't believe that. But I would just say to you, like I've said it so many times, you're not alone. Keep trusting in the fact that you are the person who can build this business, and keep taking daily action. Like, don't just say that thing over yourself and leave it at that. I'm not a believer that that is all you need. Take that action. Always think every single day, okay, what's one thing I can do today that's going to move my business forward? But I think that's all my notes. I hope this has been somewhat helpful. Video number 2. Maybe we're getting somewhere. Oh, that's gross. I get so told off for burping at home. I hope my mum's not watching this.